and that was with Armada, and they came out with that in 1971. It takes roughly from the late 1960s to 1985 for the British to come up and develop warrior infantry fighting vehicle. What this allowed the British to do, the British Army to do, was to have a vehicle that changed their unit. So mechanised infantry, once they re-rolled into this, so in 1987 they started re-rolling into this, those infantry units become armoured infantry. And that's really coming out with them. Now, in terms of protection, this armour will protect you from 14.5mm armour-piercing ammunition and shell splinters with 155. Over a period of time from First Gulf at Desert Storm, in 2007 when they were in Iraq, and later in 2011 when they were in Afghanistan, the armour gets upgraded. So this starts at just under about 26 tonnes metric. By 2011, when it's got the theatre entry standard armour fitted, it has gone up by 15 tonnes. It's powered by a Perkins 550 horsepower diesel V8 engine, and it can do about 46 miles per hour. In terms of its gun, it's got the Rara gun, the 30mm, which is the same one that was on the Scimitar. It's got 250 rounds of ammunition stowed in there. You can fire artillery, etc. It can knock out, well, it can punch through armour of 40mm at 1500 metres. It's a very accurate gun and it's pretty capable as well. So these would have been used and deployed with the British infantry from 1987 onwards. They produced 787 of them and it's due to go out of service next year. The vehicle you can see going around with it in the desert yellow, that is Desert Warrior. Now, that was conceived in 1986. The whole idea here was to create a warrior that could be supplied to countries in the Middle East. And in 1993, so that was one of the key things they put in. The turret, though, is the Delco turret, and this is the same one. You might think that looks a bit familiar. It's the same one that is on the LAV 25 and the Bradley. So what you have here is a 25mm gun with a coaxial, and you've got the capability of firing rounds of single rounds, 100 rounds a minute, 200 rounds a minute, and if you change the actual gun with 5 operations to it, you can fire 500 rounds per minute. The only problem is you've only got 210 actually in your vehicle stowage. Now this can punch through 25mm of armour, that's BMP territory, at about 1.3 kilometres. Now if you want to take on the heavier stuff, and this is really why they created this, theoretically at range, and that can take you out to 3 kilometres out range. The other thing you can see here as well is you can see there's passive armour on the sides, and the interesting thing is the driver has 3 periscopes rather than the single periscope that is on the standard Warrior. So this is a specialised vehicle that was produced at this time. Interestingly, they created a single Arctic Warrior, and that had heating elements in it to keep it warm, and that was designed for operating in cold conditions.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Private Beharry carried out 2 individual acts of great heroism by which he saved the lives of his comrades. Both were in direct face of the enemy under intense fire at great personal risk to himself, one leading to him sustaining very serious injuries. His valour is worthy of the highest recognition. In the early hours of the 1st of May 2004, Beharry's company was ordered to replenish an isolated coalition forces outpost located in the centre of the troubled city of Al Amara. He was the driver of a platoon commander's Warrior armoured fighting vehicle. His platoon was the company's reserve force and was placed on immediate notice to move. As the main elements of his company were moving into the city to carry out the replenishment, they were retasked to fight through a series of enemy ambushes in order to extract a foot patrol that had become pinned down and to sustain small arms and heavy machine gun fire, an improvised explosive device and rocket-propelled grenade attack. platoon was tasked over the radio to come to the assistance of the remainder of the company who were attempting to extract the isolated foot patrol. As his platoon passed a roundabout en route to the pinned down patrol, they became aware that the road to the front was empty of all civilian traffic, an indicator of a potential ambush ahead. The platoon commander ordered the vehicle to halt so that he could assess the situation. The vehicle was then immediately hit by multiple rocket-propelled grenades. Eyewitnesses report that the vehicle was engulfed in a number of violent explosions which physically rocked the 30-ton Warrior. As a result of this ferocious initial volley of fire, both the platoon commander and the vehicle's gunner were incapacitated by concussion and other wounds, and a number of the soldiers in the rear of the vehicle were also wounded. Due to the damage sustained at the blast to the vehicle's radio systems, Beharry had no means of communication with either his turret crew or any of the other Warrior vehicles deployed around him. He did not know if his commander or crewman were still alive or how serious their injuries may be. In this confusing and dangerous situation, on his own initiative, he closed his driver's hatch and moved forward through the ambush position to try and establish some form of communications, halting just short of the barricade placed across the road. The vehicle was hit again by sustained RPG attack from insurgent fighters in the alleyways and on the rooftops around his vehicle. Further damage to the Warrior from these explosions caused it to catch fire and fill rapidly with thick, noxious smoke. Beharry opened up the armoured hatch cover to clear his view and orient himself into the situation. He still had no radio communications and was now acting on his own initiative as the lead vehicle in a 6 Warrior convoy in an enemy-controlled area of the city at night. He assessed that his best course of action to save the lives of his crew was to push through out of the ambush. He drove his Warrior directly through the barricade, not knowing if there were mines or improvised explosive devices placed there to destroy his vehicle. By doing this, he was able to lead the remaining 5 Warriors behind him towards safety. As the smoke in his driver's tunnel cleared, he was just able to make out the shape of another RPG in flight heading directly towards him. He pulled the heavy armoured catch down with one hand while still controlling his vehicle with the other. However, the overpressure from the explosion of the rocket wrenched the hatch out of his grip, and the flames and force of the blast passed directly over him down the driver's tunnel, further wounding the semi-conscious gunner in the turret. The impact of this rocket destroyed Beharry's armoured periscope, so he was forced to drive the vehicle through the remainder of the ambush route, some 1,500 metres long, with his hatch opened up and his head exposed to enemy fire, all the time with no communications with any other vehicle. During this long surge through the ambushes, the vehicle was again struck by RPGs and small arm fire. While his head remained out of the hatch to enable him to see the route ahead, he was directly exposed to much of this fire and was himself hit by a 7.62mm bullet, which penetrated his helmet and remained lodged in the inner surface. Despite this harrowing weight of incoming fire, Beharry continued to push through the extended ambush, still leading his platoon until he broke clean. He then visually identified another Warrior for his company and followed it through the streets of Alamara to the outside of the CIMIC house outpost, which was receiving small arms fire from the surrounding area. Once he had brought his vehicle to a halt outside, without thought for his own personal safety, he climbed onto the turret of the still burning vehicle and, seemingly oblivious to the incoming enemy small arms fire, manhandled his wounded platoon commander out the turret, off the vehicle and to the safety of a nearby Warrior. He then returned once again to his vehicle and again mounted the exposed turret to lift out the vehicle's gunner and move him to a position of safety. Exposing himself yet again to enemy fire, he returned to the rear of the burning vehicle to lead the disoriented and shocked dismounts and casualties to safety. Remounting his burning vehicle for the 3rd time, he drove it through a complex chicane and into the security of the defended perimeter of the outpost, thus denying it to the enemy. Only at this stage did Beharry pull the fire extinguisher handles, immobilising the engine of the vehicle, dismounted, and then moved himself into the relative safety of the back of another Warrior. Once inside, Beharry collapsed from the sheer physical and mental exhaustion of his efforts and was subsequently himself evacuated. Having returned to duty following medical treatment, on the 11th of June 2004, Beharry's Warrior was part of a quick reaction force tasked to attempt to cut off a mortar team that attacked a coalition base in Alamara. As the lead vehicle of the platoon, he was moving rapidly through the dark city streets toward the suspected firing point, when his vehicle was ambushed by the enemy from a series of rooftop positions. During this initial heavy weight of enemy fire, an RPG detonated on the vehicle's frontal armour, just 6 inches from Beharry's head, resulting in a serious head injury and the loss of 40% of his brain. Other rockets struck the turret and sides of the vehicle, incapacitating his commander and injuring several of the crew. With the blood from his head injury obscuring his vision, Beharry managed to continue to control his vehicle and forcefully reverse the warrior out of the ambush area. The vehicle continued to move until it struck the wall of a nearby building and came to rest. Beharry then lost consciousness as a result of his wounds. By moving the vehicle out of the enemy's chosen killing area, he enabled other warrior crews to be able to extract his crew from his vehicle with a greatly reduced risk from incoming fire. Despite receiving a serious head injury, which later saw him be listed as very seriously injured and in a coma for some time, his level-headed actions in the face of heavy and accurate enemy fire at short range against almost certainly saved the lives of his crew and provided conditions for the safe evacuation to medical treatment. Beharry displayed repeated extreme gallantry and unquestioned valour despite intense direct attacks, personal injury and damage to his vehicle in the face of relentless enemy action. And for this action, he was awarded a Victoria Cross.
This is the MAN SVR, okay, so part of the MAN SV or support vehicle range. This is the recovery variant. This is what we use to drag things out of trouble, okay, anything up to including about the size of a warrior. You'll see the large crane on the back there. That is a recovery crane. That's able to lift things. You're looking at about a 15-ton limit on there. At the rear, once it drives around, you'll be able to see winching mechanism, pulleys. That's able to drag stuff up to 35 or 50 tons, depending how it's done. This vehicle is crewed by the REME, Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers. Okay, most specifically, you're always going to have a recce mech on there. Today, we've got Corporal Glasgow and Lance Corporal Metcalf. Mitford, excuse me. There we go, I got his name wrong and we still cheered. On camp, recce mechs are responsible for checking our lifting equipment, ensuring it's all in date, making sure we can do things safely. When we get out of camp, these are some of the busiest guys and girls you know, because we don't get many vehicles caught in ditches on the tank park, but it happens when we're out there. So if you want a job where you're quiet for 20% of the time and busy 80% of the time, this isn't for you. If you want to be quiet 8% of the time and very busy 20% of the time, take this job. A few points on the SVR itself. It is a big vehicle. In that configuration, it can weigh up to 38 tons, and it needs to be that way because it needs to be able to pull the vehicles. Interestingly, it can be used as a multi-purpose tool, so it's not just limited to recovery. The crane on the top, if used in conjunction with another vehicle, and I've seen this happen, it is a pretty impressive sight. Two of those put together are able to lift the turret off of a Challenger 2.
We said before, how many roughly we've got, you know, because again, scale, we're seeing one of everything here, but of course for the military, we're actually talking lots most of the time.
The MAN SV range, you've got about 6,000 vehicles, but that includes all what we generally term as army trucks. SVRs, you're looking in the hundreds. Most of them are going to be attached to regiments that you've got the warriors, the vehicles that require that kind of recovery. As an armoured soldier, I'm probably going to see one per squadron for me, because it's not there to pull Challengers out of trouble. We're going to see a vehicle like that coming up shortly.
And again in the background, so obviously serving army, trialling it here, but you've seen the stands out here. We've got things like the yeomanry, the people in the background as well, because part-time soldiering as well. People, I imagine there's people here in the audience with the skills, recovery, road stuff, they'd be perfect for this, wouldn't they?
And of course that's the thing, we often talk about the army giving you transferable skills. REME is very definitely one of those. It's a technical trade. Being a technical trade, some of their skills are on a higher pay band, especially if you enjoy electronics. Join as a technician, you start off as a Lance Corporal, more money, and you've got that ability to then go and work elsewhere.
So, obviously it's come on, something big and noisy behind, hiding behind the mound there. Now, another one of these classic vehicles that is essential for an armoured force, wherever it's going, but sometimes we don't look at so much down here. We only like the real big battle tanks, and here we're talking about something that recovers them.
Absolutely, so we've got the craft here. Challenger Armoured Repair and Recovery Vehicle. As the name suggests, it's armoured, it's there to repair and recover Challengers. In its OES configuration, we've got the extra armour on. She's a real brute. About 68 tons, you're looking well over 70 with that. She needs to be heavy because she needs to recover the extra tanks. Again, crew today by the Remy. We've got Corporal Wood driving today. Big shout out to her and his girlfriend who's present here. And then at the top we've got Corporal Tucker. Hi Ali, you're out there in the crowd I know somewhere. And Bob, who we mentioned yesterday. Let's give him a round of applause again for being ginger in this heat. The crane that you see on the top of there, okay, that is not a recovery crane. Unlike the SVR, that's not used for getting vehicles out of trouble. That's there primarily to take the pack, the engine, out of Challengers. It is theoretically possible to take its own pack out as well, although in practice highly difficult. At the back there, that's where you see the drawbars. Once they've got us out of trouble with a winch that you see on the front, the drawbars are then attached to form an A-frame. That can pull a fully uploaded Challenger 2 tank out of most situations.
And this is in this phrase we sometimes use erroneously, but theatre entry standard. It's got the extra armour on the outside, bar armour at the back, and some of the electronic gadgetry that if it's going off on combat situations.
Yeah, high threat environment. As ever, vehicles like this are combat support. They're not supposed to be frontline fighting vehicles, but they go where the frontline fighting is. So it needs to have that additional armour. It brings to memory the famous incident in Iraq. We've got Staff Sergeant Lyndhurst of the Remy. He received the Military Cross for successfully recovering Challengers. Recovered a stricken Challenger. This is the famous one where the Challenger got hit by so many RPGs. The numbers are inflated. Regardless of that, Staff Lyndhurst under constant small arms, RPG and mortar fire recovered it. So whilst not frontline fighting soldiers, they've definitely got the courage to get in there and help retrieve those assets.
And you have to say, if you like your vehicles, it looks perfect for its role, doesn't it? Dozer blade on the front, big and butch, perfect, so perfect Tonka toy. Now, another one that's pretty obvious, I imagine most of us could work this one out, it's a bridge layer.
We've got it. The bridge layer today, Titan. So, Challenger 2 Titan Armoured Vehicle Launch Bridge is its full name. We just refer to it as Titan. Those with any form of insignia identification will see this is crewed by the Royal Engineers, okay? Today, driven by Sergeant Smith and commanded by Staff Sergeant Ansell. The engineers, okay? Very, very specialised in what they do, and the Titan personifies that. Whilst we've had the SVR and the Krav that carry out multiple purposes well, the Titan is there to do one thing. It's to bridge gaps for us, whether that be a river, whether that be some form of small ravine. This is highly specialised, and as such is vital to our ability to fight manoeuvre warfare.
The military would call it gap crossing. You come to a river, something like that. If you're all held up, it's a real problem. You absolutely need these assets if you're going to continue and advance. So for the army, they're really precious assets, aren't they?
Key. And the same goes vice versa. If we see an enemy one of these, it is instantly a high value target because we can deny that same ability for them. Most modern war fighting is based upon combined arms manoeuvre. The key element of that is manoeuvre warfare. You want every element moving together in unison, but if one element can't move, if you can't advance, it comes to a halt and you become an easy target.
So we're going to see the vehicle if he finds an appropriate spot, see if he's going to actually try and drop that bridge for us. But seeing him move around there, one of the issues, of course, is now you've got new kit coming in. Of course, you've got to make sure the older kit is still going to be compatible. And we saw this morning, Challenger 3 still going to be able to use this bridge?
Challenger 3, I believe so, don't quote me because we haven't got these prototypes. I can talk to Challenger 3 recovery. We've been out on craft recovery trials. Challenger 3 can be recovered by craft, so that's a tick in the box. Similarly, SBR has been tested with Boxer. That's a current one that they're trying to work out if it is feasible.
To that
suitable spot. That could have been done by our own reconnaissance, so a light cavalry regiment. More than likely we're going to ID where we think we can go, and an armoured recce, okay, they have their special reconnaissance, all kinds of measuring sticks, gauges, they're going to tell if it's correct or not. Traditionally they would have been on a CBRT platform, a Spartan perhaps, now more than likely to be one of the Ajax variants or indeed a Warrior. As we've touched on, and we've gone on about, this is a high value target. We are not going to let that go to any form of crossing by itself. Before it's moved, we're going to have a troop of tanks, if we were an armoured battle group, watching this spot, looking out in depth to make sure there's no enemy over there. Move into the crossing, it's going to be protected. It could be 4 warriors, it could be 2 tanks. It depends what we've got on hand. Reinforcing the fact that this is vital. We would rather lose another armoured asset than lose one of these, because we don't have that many of them.
And again, with we always, and again, part of the history, the museum still teaches that idea of what can we learn from the past. The classic situation is always with, we never think we've got enough tanks, but we certainly never have enough armoured engineering variants, do we, sort of thing. So over time, this is something that we have to learn again. We saw the Krav, it's over there with a dozer blade. You know, if you're going in an urban setting, you're going to be needing that dozer blade for so many different reasons now. So the fact of Challenger, we can fit a dozer blade on the front. All this sort of engineering assets can be fightable, will be fightable wherever we're going to fight.
I'm very glad you mentioned the dozer blade, because I was actually part of it wasn't really a trial because we successfully did it. This was whilst we were out in Estonia for the first time since I believe Chieftain. We actually fit a track width mine plough onto a Challenger 2. So normally you'd see that on the Trojan, the other T2 variant, the big angry one that clutches up. We managed to put that on a Challenger 2 and have the similar effect. Your point on urban war fighting. Most of the world is going to be living in urban environments soon. Whether we like it or not, we have to be able to fight in that environment. The Krav can do that with its blade. Spying over there with my recce eyes, we can see a recce vehicle coming to the fore. This is very much something that's not really used for the urban environment. What we've got here is Jackal 3. Okay, Jackal 3, this is the latest incarnation of the Jackal, and I believe it's the first time it's appeared with the British Army here at Tankfest. Troop of the Light Cavalry Regiments, what is it? It's a deep reconnaissance and fire support vehicle. Today on there, we have, up the top there, we've got Lance Corporal Watson from the Scots DG. Driving it today, we've got Lance Corporal Ryan from the Queen's Dragoon Guards. And the biggest round of applause I want is for Mr. Wayne Dennis, the Army's most important civil servant, commanding it. He has been with ATU for over 20 years. I can guarantee you that man has put more kit and equipment into the hands of our soldiers than any other. He deserves his recognition there. Anyway, what does the vehicle do? It travels at road speeds when it's on the road, 100 kilometres an hour. It can go 50, 60 cross country if you're brave enough. The key things that you're noticing with the Jackal 3 there, it's got a windscreen. It's got a windscreen and it's got the enhanced rollover protection, or ROPS as we call it, on the top, which allows it to actually have a roof. It's slightly boxier, slightly heavier than the Jackal 2, therefore the engine's been upgraded, gives it better protection as well, and it's still got that classic V-shaped hull underneath. Designed to operate at length, its last being use was Hop Nukem in Mali, where a troop of these were able to go out for a week at a time, being resupplied by the supply variant, which we call the Coyote, the 6-wheel variant that the troop sergeant would drive.
And I mentioned this before, but it's interesting to note we are now not always painting them in this, what we would consider a Middle Eastern sand sort of colour, isn't it? Because we've now got urban ops, so we've got urban camouflage, and of course, you mentioned we're out in Estonia, so very different camouflage schemes now coming back on vehicles.
Having enjoyed some of your videos on personal camouflage patterns, I think it's a really interesting time for armoured vehicles as well, because there is work being done. What is the new camouflage pattern going to be? We all remember Berlin camo. Is it going to be digital? Are we going to be going for some kind of disruptive camouflage pattern? It's quite exciting in that time. Yeah, that is a vehicle that is more than likely being used in a sandy condition, so we've still got that colour. But watch this space, because who knows what we're going to be doing. We do a lot of work of disruption, trying to break up the outlines of vehicles. That can be achieved with add-on camouflage, it can be achieved with simple paint.
And one thing that perhaps many people hear, you can obviously see that vehicle. We're looking through our eyes. It might be that you're going to be looking through binoculars if it's again out there on campaign. Don't forget, a lot of systems now are looking at vehicles through thermal, so you're trying to protect against that, so you see a thermal image of the vehicle. And of course the other thing is this word electronic signature. It's pumping out another set of signals, isn't it, that you want to detect if it's the enemy or hide if it's yours.
The biggest thing for that is radio transmission, and being part of an armoured regiment, if anybody's got any experience in tanks, you know we like to waffle nonsense over the net. So that is a real training thing. We need to really minimise that when we're moving into position. We need to be able to do that without transmitting, because when we're transmitting, we're giving our location away.
And when you see these vehicles, by the way, it's not just out in the middle of, like as we were used to before with the earlier versions, Iraq, Afghanistan, but the idea of those, they did the exercise where they sent them across Poland to the Baltic, and they are very speedy and impressive. You've got a fair old lump there with a 50 calibre that can turn up and do some damage.
Yeah, 500-600 kilometres road mileage you're able to do. The whole purpose of the wheeled vehicle that we'll touch on, it doesn't have that massive logistic chain. We are able to move it by the road, not dependent on rail systems. And here's another one of these vehicles. So what we've got here, the Foxhound, today crewed by Sergeant Duncan driving it, Sergeant Jackson driving it, and WO2 Duncan of the King's Royal Hussars. This is a light protected patrol vehicle, okay, designed to operate at length. Unlike a protected mobility vehicle, which tend to be a little bit larger, this isn't going to go into high threat environments. This was paired with Jackals on Op Newcomb. A direct replacement for the Snatch Land Rovers. When we learnt our lesson on the Herricks, they weren't suitable. Classic giveaways, the V-shaped hull that lets the blast kind of go up either side of it. You've only got one door, you can't see it, but the inside, the driver's side, doesn't have a door. That's all to maintain rigidity. And another word that we're going to touch on soon, modular. Okay, the modular elements of it mean that you can add bits and pieces on. The wheels, for example, are all individual drive, meaning, well, it does sound nice as well. This vehicle is capable of driving on 3 wheels. I've not seen it tested, but in theory, that's what it can do.
And that idea is also about, there's another word, sacrificial. Sometimes you'll see vehicles with that classic V shape. It doesn't matter. And you can see there that speed of those vehicles. I'm always fascinated. They're torsion bars down the side, aren't they? So you can actually see the springing mechanism are those funny rods going down the side of the hull there. And they're being twisted every time the vehicle goes over a bump. That's how a torsion bar works. Normally they're...
We'll get the good stuff out of the way first. Crew today, we have got Lance Corporal Smith driving it, and we've got Staff Sergeant Smith of the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers commanding it. Unfortunately, a big friend of mine, Sergeant Major Latham, refused to get on here because he didn't want to be mentioned, but I've done it anyway. What is Boxer? Okay, Boxer is the future, the backbone of our heavy mechanised infantry brigades, okay, and indeed some of the armoured ones. What is Boxer not? Some people think this is given as a replacement to Warrior. It's not going to be that. It's not designed to be that. Multiple variants have already been in use. This vehicle has been in use in Germany, in the Netherlands, in Lithuania, in Australia. It is a successful vehicle. We know it's good. We're going to be getting about 600 of these. The initial tranche is going to be built in Germany. The remaining going to be brought over here to the UK, providing around 1,000 British jobs.
Now, one of the first things you see about this is scale, isn't it? It is a big-looking vehicle, but it's very mobile and very fast, and they're developing it further, aren't they? It may well be that the new 155 artillery system goes basically on the back of a Boxer.
And that looks like a very exciting prospect. I've read a little bit about that. The thing with modular as well, not only does it allow it to change its battlefield role, but we can keep it current and competent. We can swap it out, we can upgrade it. Something that possibly British armoured fighting vehicles have been guilty of not doing in the past. It future-proofs it. Now before we get technical, we've got very, very important people on this vehicle today. Clearly all important, but we've got Sergeant with a J, because he's a rifleman, Sergeant Colville gunning. We've got Colour Sergeant Gifford commanding. And the round of applause that I want to hear today. Driving, we've got Warrant Officer 2, Mikey Dutton. This is his last thing he's been doing. He's going to be leaving the army in 3 months or so after 25 years of service. Originally starting with the PWRR, he joined the Fusiliers because he loved the warrior that much.
I was going to... We mentioned it yesterday, but one of the great defensive mechanisms.
Challenger 2, as we see here, up armoured, everything we can do. This is the infamous Megatron. Our favourite tank from over the road at ATU. This is pretty much what we can do with a Challenger 2 top end, a combination of OES and TES. If you want to get into a technical debate about what the difference is, Staff Sergeant Anthony Cherritt of the KRH is your guy to do that. He told me he'd love to do that. We've got the remote weapon system, we've got the ECM suite at the top, we've got the add-on armour. This is the pinnacle. If we're going to go into a high threat environment, this is what we're doing it in. Third generation main battle tank. We've got composite armour, we've got the fully automated electronic fire control system, meaning irrespective of what speed we're travelling, we can use that weapon system from a fully stabilised position. A quick shout out to those on board and the ones that you can't see. Driving today, we've got Trooper Thompson from the RTR, we've got Lance Corporal Reamer from the RTR, and commanding, we have our Canadian 2IC from ATU, Major Ben Mitchell. Try and stop those issues becoming apparent on the newer vehicles.
And this idea that there's so many modern plug-in systems, that idea we've got an infrastructure now that again in the past the electronics were almost separate for everything. Now we can take one thing out and plug something in. Well, that's the idea one hopes, isn't it?
Modularity, as we've said, buzzword, but it's all about that, future-proofing and modularity.
So diesel on the hot exhaust, and it's a way of creating, and it's also acts again thermal as well to a degree, doesn't it?
It does. So we're fortunate because at the front you'll see we do have the normal multi-barrel smoke grenade discharges. Much more of a defensive thing. We really need to get out of trouble, let's pop it. But the ability to blast smoke by simply belting the diesel on. It works both ways. We can't magically see through our own smoke,
so please give them a round of applause so we can show our support to them and their families who have come here with them today. Thank you so much.
much indeed to David Willie and also to Corporal Lucas Wright for talking us through these amazing armoured vehicles that are currently part of the Army fleet. They're not going to be staying around for long, they've all got to get off. I think they're on a promise of fish and chips tonight. So if you want to get any pictures, now's the time to do it while they're parked up. And once again, please give them a great big round of applause. As David said, these are our army, and really important, of course, on Forces Week. As I mentioned earlier on, not that anyone ever listens to anything I say, don't dash off. The Tank Museum site's open until 6 o'clock this evening, so you've got plenty of time to go into the Tank Museum if you've not been in it, go into the Vehicle Conservation Centre if you've not been in there, or pop down to see the Tank Park or even the Babcock Activity Zone. Of course, they're proud partners of Tankfest this year, which leaves me only to say thank you very much indeed to you for coming. Don't forget your 2027 tickets at 20.